Morning, boys. Today we're going to carry on with the novel My Sister Lives on a Mantelpiece. We left off on chapter 4 last time that we dealt with the book. So today we're going to do chapter 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so it's very important that you have your notebooks with you because you're going to take notes. And I've got 2 exercises for us to do, and you can do them during class, and then you can do them, for homework, and then we'll have a look at the answers tomorrow. Okay. So in chapter 5, just some stuff that I'd like us to note. In chapter 5, we actually learn about how Rose died. So far, we just know that Rose died, and we know that her ashes are in an urn and sitting on a mantelpiece. And we also know that there are bits of her that were buried. So there's like a grave where she was buried, okay? But we don't know the details around what happened. And in chapter 5, we hear the details. Okay. So something that's interesting is, remember, Jamie doesn't remember Rose, and that's kind of understandable because she died when he was 5 years old. So he doesn't remember much from when he was 5. I don't even remember much when I was 5, actually, come to think of it. So he in the beginning of the chapter, he's having a conversation with Jazz, and Jamie says, because he's Jamie and because he doesn't remember Rose, he actually says he's glad that Rose died instead of Jazz. And he means it in the best way possible. I think what he means is that he knows Jazz. He doesn't know Rose. He only knows what people have told him about Rose. He knows Jazz. He's experienced Jazz. He knows Jazz much better, and so that's where it's coming from. And of course, that makes Rose cry. And there's a lot of things that we see that Jamie doesn't understand. Jazz says, "Imagine a shadow without a person." When Jamie says, "I'm glad that you're still alive," and Rose is actually the one that died. So here, Jazz is actually saying that she was Rose's shadow. Okay, so that's why she says, "Imagine a shadow without a person." Jazz believes that Jazz, was Rose's shadow. So in other words, when you live in someone's shadow, it means that everyone thinks that that person is better than you, and everyone is expecting you to behave the way that that person behaves. You'll see, a lot of you will see, if you're like the younger one and you've got older siblings, if your older siblings, for example, were straight A students, you'll find that sometimes, not all the time, sometimes your parents will expect you to have straight A's the way that your older brother or your older sister has straight A's, or they'll expect you to be well behaved the way that your older brother was well behaved. I had it with my sister, where the expectation was for my sister to behave the way that I behaved because I was a good girl. So she was expected to behave the way that I behave, and not to do certain things because I didn't do certain things. And so that's what it's like to live in someone's shadow, when people expect you to behave and to be like someone else. Then that's what it means to live in their shadow. So here, even though Jamie doesn't understand it because he's so young, Jazz understands that when she was growing up, she grew up in Rose's shadow. Okay, so Rose was the one that they actually preferred, and Jazz was expected to behave well. And then we learn later on in the chapter, when they're actually describing the scene that led up to Rose being blown up, it was actually because Rose was being naughty, right? So she was playing with the birds and chasing them away, and Dad said, "Get back here." And Jazz, being a good girl, wanting to look good, what did she do? She ran and she stood by Dad and did what Dad said, and Rose didn't listen to her parents, did whatever she wanted, and then she ended up getting blown up. Okay. So we can see from sort of an adult point of view why people would be upset about that. Even Rose's mom was like, "Ah, just let her play." And by not also, so maybe she blames herself and she thinks that maybe if she had said no, come back, then that wouldn't have happened. Okay. We also see in chapter 5 that Jamie is also doing his own mourning. He's mourning in his own way. So he watches a movie about the bombings, and he sees the stories of other people, and then he thinks to himself, if they hadn't gone to the park, if this and that hadn't happened, if they'd left sooner, if they'd left later, if they hadn't gone at all, then Rose would still be alive. And for Jamie, it's not even about Rose being alive, but it's what does it mean for Rose to be alive? You need to write that down. For Jamie, Rose being alive means that his family would still be together. And that's what he's mourning. He's not really mourning Rose as such. He is mourning and he's sad about his family being torn apart and being broken. And he really wishes that Rose hadn't died. So in chapter 5, we deal with all those issues and all those deep ways of mourning. And of course, Dad wants to go and sprinkle the ashes, and he ends up not doing it in chapter 5. Okay, so that's chapter 5. Oh, and the other thing that we need to know in chapter 5 is Jamie says, oh, we didn't know, nobody talks about the fact that Rose was actually extremely naughty and actually was a really, really unpleasant child. No one talks about that. Everyone talks about how perfect she is. And he says, now that she's dead and perfect. And it goes back to how we remember people who have passed away. We often remember people who have passed away. We always remember just the good things about them, only the good things about them. We don't remember maybe if they were ever mean or if they ever did anything bad. We never remember that. We always choose to remember the good things about them. And this is what this family is doing. And the fact that Jamie says now that she's dead and perfect, you can hear that he's actually bitter about it. He's actually angry about it. That not only is she dead, but we refuse to acknowledge that she wasn't the best person in the world. And he's hoping that maybe if we acknowledge that she wasn't the best person in the world, we'd maybe get over her faster as a family. These are the emotions that are going through his mind. Okay. All right. Okay. So chapter 6. Okay. So something that struck me in chapter 6 is that at Jamie's new school, they've got that chart, that chart with the angel, and the angel moves up on the cloud and moves up to the next cloud, and then it goes all the way up to heaven. For me, it just showed that how religion is used to scare people. Okay. The terrorists who blew up the different buildings in London, they did it in the name of Allah, in the name of God. They did it for God, they said. And here, this chart thing, if you're really, really good, we're gonna put you up on the cloud and you're gonna get closer to the top, you're gonna get closer to heaven. Okay? So this understanding of being good or being bad, if we behave well, we'll end up in heaven. If we behave badly, we'll end up in hell. So it's just something that was very interesting. And also in chapter 6, that's where Jamie gets framed for stealing Daniel's watch. And his teacher says, when she's taking him to the principal's office, she says, God is watching us all the time. So this is the way that she's trying to make him feel guilty so he can tell the truth, even though Jamie didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. But to make him feel guilty, God is watching you. God is watching you. And we say that to kids all the time, that God can see you. Even when you think that he's not watching you, he can see you. Jamie really still struggles to talk about his family and what happened to his family because it's just complicated. You must remember, Jamie is not only being bullied at his new school, he was also bullied at his old school. Remember, we spoke about this because he likes art, because he's really clever, because he struggles to talk to people. He was always bullied back at his old school, and he didn't really have friends back at his old school. So, and his hope, remember, for moving to this new place, his biggest hope was that they could start afresh, he could have friends, he could have a better life. So he's really hoping for a better life at this new school. And he didn't want to be bullied. So he didn't want to say to people, hey, my sister was blown up, or hey, my dad drinks a lot, or hey, things are really hard at home. He didn't want to talk about it because then explaining it would make people bully him, and then he would be unhappy, and then he'd be back like in London. He wouldn't be happy again. So he's very, very reluctant to talk about his family. But the thing about lying, the thing about telling a lie, and you'll know when you tell a lie, is that you have to remember the lie that you told because you have to keep that lie consistent. You have to keep it alive. And you have to cover up that first lie that you told with another lie and another lie and another lie. And it actually becomes more and more difficult to tell the truth the longer you lie about something, it becomes much more difficult to tell the truth. And this is where Jamie finds himself. When they ask him what he did over the weekend, and he knows over the weekend they tried to get rid of the ashes, to throw the ashes in the ocean, and it didn't happen. Now, he can't say that in class because, wait a minute, he's supposed to have twin sisters, sisters that are twins. And so he can't now say, "Oh no, we went to get to throw the ashes out, and then we didn't." Now he's gonna have to explain all the way to the beginning, and then he has to explain why he lied. So he finds himself in a very difficult situation here. But of course, Sunya helps him with that and makes up alliances that she's met the family. Okay, so we see here Jamie's desire. He just wants to be accepted and he wants to put the whole experience behind him and he just wants a better life. That's his deepest desire. He just wants a better life. He wants a happier life. He wants his family to be back together so that they can be happy. Okay. And then in chapter 7, we meet Jazz's boyfriend who sneaks to the house and he's also like a punk rocker with the green hair and stuff. But he seems like a good guy. So and we also see that Jamie still feels very, very guilty about being friends with Sunya, especially when his dad is having good days and his dad is friendly and he makes like them breakfast and he takes them to school. Now he feels really bad. He's like, Dad is really, really good. I can't now turn against him and be friends with Sunya. And he sees it as a betrayal. He's trying to be loyal to his father. Okay. But on the other hand, he's also scared that he's gonna get kicked out. Because if he gets kicked out of the house, where's he gonna go? That's his biggest fear. He's scared that he's gonna get kicked out of his home and then he's going to have nowhere to go. Okay. So once you've listened to this video and taken down notes, whenever I say remember or I say this is important or I say write it down, you need to pause the video and write that stuff down. Okay. There are 2 worksheets that I also want you to complete. What you don't complete now, you will do for homework and then we'll have a look at the answers tomorrow, which is Thursday. Okay. Have a good day, my boys.